Let's try that again. Good morning and welcome everyone to the Napa County Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm calling this meeting of February 4th, 2025 to order. Could I have roll call, please, Ms. Hoskins?
Yes. Vice Chair Manfrey.
Present.
Supervisor Ramos.
Here.
Supervisor Alessio.
Present.
Supervisor Gallagher.
Here.
Chair Cottrell.
Here. May I ask Jenny Olson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So for our first item of business this morning, we are at Pet of the Week, and I believe our pet is named Bing Bong. Here's Bing Bong. Good morning, Luis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
What can you tell us about Bing Bong?
So Bing Bong he's about a 3 to 4 year old lab retriever. He is a chocolate lab, which you don't see as frequently. The age that we're guesstimating for him is a lot of basically just seeing how he is. But then if you look at his face closely, you can kind of start to see his little gray whiskers are starting to kick in. Bing Bong, like the name, he's just all over the place when you say hi to him. He can be either a total gentleman or he could be a dog that just doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know his own strength. He doesn't know his own size. So he could come up to you and say hi very, very politely, or next thing you know, it's just full body weight on you. So just be ready in case you tip over. Same thing like he is right now. He's got like all his weight on my leg. If you're not familiar with the breed, sometimes labs can be a little bit overwhelming. You can't really tell, okay, is he calm? Is he excited? They're just kind of always going. They're always looking for food. They're endless pits of just consuming food. Bing Bong has been at the shelter since January. He has been adopted once and brought back just for that same thing because he's just a lot of dog for some people. But if you have labs, you're just like, no, been there, done that. I know what I'm kind of getting myself into. I would probably say within a year or so, he'll hit that phase where he just starts to calm down. He's a little bit easier to handle. But luckily, the breed is really, really trainable and easy to work with.
Well, Bing Bong has been lovely in the office thus far this morning, so thanks so much for bringing him to us today. And again, we'll remind folks that Bing Bong's adoption fees will be waived this week if someone is interested in taking the plunge with Bing Bong. Thank you so much, Luis. All right, and our next agenda item is our proclamation and commendations. This month is Black History Month, and I am proud that we have a presentation of a proclamation that I will ask Supervisor Gallagher to do. Before we do that, I'm going to ask for any public comment on the item, and then I will ask for a motion to approve the proclamation. So let's go ahead and have the public comment, please.
I'm sorry, I thought you were doing open public comments.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that will be coming. All right, thanks for being ready. So can I ask for a motion to approve this proclamation? A motion from Supervisor Ramos and a second
Yes,
from Supervisor Alessio. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And go ahead, Supervisor Gallagher. Thank you so much.
And if you're here for Black History Month, come on up.
Yeah, please join Supervisor Gallagher at the podium if you're here for this proclamation.
We have JT from our own behavioral health
Yeah, Napa Valley Black History Month.
and Napa
Maybe.
Valley
Yeah.
Black History Month Committee, and Jenny Olson, who's also part of the committee and also with Mentis. So great to have you both here. Okay, we're going to read the proclamation, and then if you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great. So whereas the Napa County Board of Supervisors proudly recognizes February 2025 as Black History Month in Napa County, we celebrate the diversity of Black people in Napa County and the vast contributions of Black Americans to our county and country, and recognize that Black history is American history, and that Black culture, stories, and triumphs are at the core of who we are as a nation. And the theme for Black History Month 2025, African Americans and Labor, highlights the profound impact Black workers have had in building and sustaining the economic foundation of the United States, from enslavement to modern-day labor movements. And Black Americans have played a pivotal role in every aspect of the American workforce, contributing to industries such as agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, education, healthcare, and technology, often in the face of systemic discrimination and economic injustice. And despite barriers such as segregation, exclusion from labor unions, and unequal wages, Black Americans have organized and fought for workers' rights, fair wages, and better working conditions, with leaders such as A. Philip Randolph, Dorothy Bolden, and Bayard Rustin paving the way for labor justice and civil rights. And Napa Valley is known for the development of a beautiful agricultural landscape, which has relied not only on science and artistic design, but also vision and hard work to become successful. And we want to recognize our Black-owned wineries and other Black workers and entrepreneurs for their creativity in our valley. And today and every day, we celebrate African Americans and labor and encourage all people to recognize and confront systemic racism in our neighborhoods and the wider community by standing in the gap at every opportunity, bridging barriers with fearlessness and determination to combat racism and intolerance and improve representation of Black people, not only in the workplace, but in all facets of our society. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that this Board of Supervisors, County of Napa, State of California, on this 4th day of February 2025, does hereby recognize February 2025 as Black History Month in Napa County. And we call upon the people of Napa County to observe this month by engaging in programs, activities, and reflections, and to continue our efforts to create a community that is more just, equitable, and prosperous for all.
I'll say a few words, and then Jenny Olson will go right after me. But first of all, I just want to thank the Board of Supes for acknowledging Black history. This is definitely American history as well, and a very unique, celebrating a unique culture that I feel like needs to be exposed to everyone. And so also want to just let y'all know that we did have our 8th annual Black History Month event on Saturday, and the community of Napa showed up, and it was a wonderful, powerful event. There were 3 Board of Supervisor members at the event, and I really appreciate you all for being in attendance. One other thing, I know that we're in a really interesting climate at the moment, and I know the education of Black history is extremely important for everyone. And I know we read it in books, we watch videos, but an event like Saturday, when you're in close proximity and you're learning together through interaction, I think that is one of the most important ways to learn. And so I think this event will go on as long as I'm here. And just for the folks who did miss, it's every first Saturday in February. There's also other events going on. I think Napa Valley College has some events, the library, and I believe the Napa County Office of Ed. So feel free to look into those events. And then out in the community at some of the restaurants, so State Line Barbecue is doing a Gospel Sunday. And Little Sisters on Main Street are also having some things on the weekend too. So go check them out, and I hope to see you on Juneteenth event in June as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, JT.
JT said everything I was going to say, so I just want to echo my appreciation, Chair Cottrell and all the supervisors, for your commitment to Black history this month and all year, as well as active anti-racism. Thanks very much.
Thanks to you both for being here this morning. Yes, we're going to do a photo here up front, too. All right. Next, we will move to our consent calendar items. We have no special districts on consent today, so we will go directly to item 6, which is consent calendar items 6A through 6T. I first am going to announce that we will be pulling items 6E, 6F, and 6M. So at this time, I would like to ask if there is any public comment on items 6A through 6T, accepting 6E, F, and M. Anyone in the room or on the phones? Good morning, Chris. Which item are you commenting on?
Is this consent calendar?
Yes.
And I have the item as 25208. Is that one being called?
Look on the left, there's letters next to that.
Yeah, that's
M?
M. So
M?
we're pulling that one, so we'll take public comment. Thank you for being ready. All right. Mr. Alsop.
Yeah, it was
Mr.
my mistake. When I previously said 6F, I meant 6E.
Oh,
So unless
okay.
there's another reason to pull 6F, we don't need to.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll amend that we are only pulling 6E and 6M. Anyone here to comment on 6F? And no one on the phones. Great. Okay. Then I will go ahead and ask for any board comments on that. Well, no. Yes, I will ask for any board comments. If
I'll
there
go
are.
ahead and move the balance of the consent.
Perfect.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Ramos, second by Supervisor Alessio. All in favor?
Aye.
And again, that was on everything but 6E and 6M. And now we will go to item 7, which is our public comment, and we will come back to those pulled items at item 9. So anyone here to provide public comment to speak on items not on the consent calendar or not on the agenda? All right. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lori Pesavento, and I was a former director of family service in Napa Valley, which is now called Mentas. I lived in Napa for about 40 years, and I'm kind of a part-time resident back in Napa, 2124 Clay Street. So I had a long history with Napa County with many different employment opportunities, as well as being the director of family service, Mentas. And I wanted to take a moment, because I'm here part-time now, and I wanted to come and say that I'm so, so proud to see Chair Cotel and all of the Board of Supervisors representing what I think is a strong voice as women in this community. I fought long and hard to really represent the disenfranchised of this community. And I am very impressed with coming back, reading your website about inclusion, immigration policies, about protecting children and families of this community, of which I'm so passionate about still. I haven't lost that. I did retire 16 years ago. That didn't go away. I just took it to Portland, Oregon, sorry for the rain today, to really advocate for my grandchildren who are up there living in a community that is not like Napa County. You know, we've had our struggles. So it's just, I wanted to say I'm so proud of all of you to represent this community, have this kind of voice. And I wanted to personally come today and thank you. It was a long commute to come down today to do this. But I really think it's important to take time, especially right now, with the representation that we have shown in local communities, to thank our representatives. This is the time, I think, in our history that we need your voices. We need your representation. And so I am retired, but it doesn't mean that I want to sleep, you know, that there's still some fight that we, in this community and other communities, and thank goodness, you know, in my mind, we're on the West Coast because we have a unified front at this point. But I wanted to really say thank you. And sorry, this is showing my age, but I'm really proud of all of you because I know a lot of you for many, many years. And so I wanted to come and say that today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for taking the time and making the drive. We appreciate your comment. Next speaker, and again, just a reminder, if you're speaking on something that's on our agenda, we're going to wait and take your comments at that moment. So go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Dion, and I work at the lab at Queen of the Valley Hospital, which is owned by Providence. As many of you may know, or all of you, that the outpatient lab was closed in March 2024. That was very devastating to the community because it's the only lab in Napa that results tests and has those things ready within a certain time frame. Otherwise, everything is sent out of Napa into different parts of the state and sometimes into different states depending on the test. There are places that you can have your blood drawn, which are the Quest, the LabCorp, and the Kaisers, but they don't have an actual lab in Napa for our patients unless they are admitted or go through the emergency department for those items. So fast forward to October 2024, we got another notice from Providence that they want to restructure our lab, and of the 30 people that are affected, maybe 15 people might be able to stay. But some of those 15 people are required to now go get a license through the state to do certain things that they didn't have to do before. And I told them it was kind of like I didn't go apply at McDonald's because I don't think I would be a very good hamburger maker. So now they're telling us you have to go make hamburgers when I didn't apply for that job, kind of thing. Just kind of to sort that out. Those caregivers are very upset and very worried that the lab will go away. And I don't know how many of you might know, but without the lab, the doctors just guess kind of what your diagnosis is based on his best ability and his training and his years of experience. So without those things, and then if we have to ship it to another part of the state or another city, you're not going to get your lab tests done really fairly quickly. And some of those things are very urgent. And you may be well enough to stay as an outpatient and not have to be an inpatient. Seeing people that used to go to the, without violating HIPAA, seeing people that used to go to the outpatient, they will stop us on the street, those of us that worked in the outpatient, and tell us how devastated they are and how sad they are that they can't come to their community hospital and have the treatment that the community hospital is there for. So they would like to take 8 people that we have on staff for different shifts and turn that into 3 people that we're supposed to have to run on each of the floors, including ICU, our trauma center, our cath lab, which is where people go if they're having a heart attack, labor and delivery, and other parts of the hospital. 3 people. So we have to have them draw, come back to the lab. We have to have them process those things and get them on the analyzer so that they can have their results within an hour. If it's a stat, that's impossible for us. And so we're looking to you all to see if there's anything that you could express to Providence that would help us out. We are having an informational picket on the 12th of February, and all of you are invited. And that's just to get the community aware of what's going on with our community hospital, which is only one.
Thanks, Dion. Could you wrap up your comments, please?
I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Gordon Marr. I'm with the National Union of Healthcare Workers. I know you guys are dealing with a lot of important issues, both ongoing and new and emerging, but thank you for this opportunity for us to share some quick updates about patient care and labor issues at Queen of the Valley Medical Center, which is one of the most important healthcare facilities here in the county. Just to expand on Dion's comments, as a caregiver at Queen of the Valley, about 2,000 or over 2,000 NUHW members at 5 hospitals and 2 other healthcare facilities operated by Providence in Northern California are engaged in a coordinated campaign right now to really call on Providence to do better for our communities and for our caregivers. I think when Providence, took over the St. Joe's Healthcare Network back in 2016, and I know many of you are familiar with this, especially Supervisor Alessio. There was some hope that a large corporation like Providence would be able to bring resources that could help even improve healthcare in Napa County, Sonoma County, and Humboldt County. But unfortunately, what we've seen since then is really cost cutting and reduction of services for the community, and really lowering of labor standards, and creating an unstable workforce here at Queen of the Valley and also the other facilities. So our members at these Providence hospitals in Northern California, including here at Queen, are really working on a coordinated campaign just to call on Providence to do better for our communities and our workers here in Northern California. And just a few other points. Providence is the third largest nonprofit healthcare corporation in the country, and they have tremendous amount of resources. They have over $8 billion in unrestricted cash assets and investments. Like a lot of healthcare corporations, they compensate their executives at a very high level. So, from our research, and our members know that Providence really has the resources to really maintain services and improve the conditions here at the hospitals. And we've seen continual cut of services. They closed labor and delivery centers at 2 of the hospitals over the last few years. And recently, as Dion said, they closed all the outpatient labs across Northern California. Up in Humboldt County, they closed an acute inpatient rehab unit, and also ended cardiac surgery, forcing patients in Humboldt County now to come down to Napa, Queen of the Valley, or Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital for those critical services. So again, we just wanted to bring these to your attention because Queen of the Valley is such an important facility here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marr.
Good morning, supervisors, staff, and members of the public. I'm Glenn Lovell, Executive Director of the Napa Solano Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, representing about 45 local unions across Napa and Solano counties, including about 45,000 workers across those 2 counties. Standing, of course, in complete support and solidarity with the workers of NUHW and the struggles that they are facing here on the front lines, is pretty well illustrated by the previous speakers. We're seeing, of course, a microcosm of many greater issues in the healthcare system playing out here, where healthcare workers confront needs on the ground, on the community, and with patients that continue to grow no less complex. The demand always increases for their services, and yet, amidst corporate consolidation of healthcare systems, it has become, ironically, given the resources involved, a greater struggle to maintain, let alone expand, critical services, and to provide them with wages and benefits that are comparable not only to the literally life-saving work that they provide for our community, but also being on par with other sizable healthcare systems. Also pretty well described by the representatives of NUHW, we have seen executive compensation move out of proportion with workers' wages that have looked pretty static. As well as the alarming cut in the outpatient labs, in the hospice services, and of course in labor and delivery services as well across this region, affecting patients, of course, across age groups and across health conditions and demographics. Fundamentally, what's important here is, of course, the Providence healthcare system, as well, and of course specifically in Queen of the Valley here in Napa, that those values that everyone articulated during the pandemic of healthcare workers being our frontline workers and our heroes, being treated as such on those front lines. And their efforts, of course, to secure better wages and pay, keeping it on par with other systems, preventing really severe service cuts, and of course, looking for proper staffing and expanded access for our patients to these critical services. And so I just want to extend, of course, my great thanks to all of the county supervisors for the audience and engagement on this. And just, of course, an invitation, of course, to all of our community members and leaders about this informational picket occurring at Queen of the Valley on February 12th, and a great chance to show solidarity and support for our workers, the 2,000 plus in the system of Providence in the North Bay, and of course 400 plus that are at Queen of the Valley as our local workers and community members. Thank you again, and thank you for the time today, and looking forward to speaking with everyone soon.
Thank you, Mr. Laval.
Good morning. Carol Witchard, 1616 E Street, here in the city of Napa. I just stopped by this morning to, one, say how nice it is that Lori's back in town, and two, to thank you guys for your protection, continued protection of our vulnerable population here in Napa County. I think it's obviously more important now than ever. And I also want to thank the labor community for being here too. I didn't know that they were going to be here, but the continued support of our working families in Napa County is, I know, something that is very near and dear to myself and to you all as well. And then I would love to see just this continued conversation and consideration of a few things that I'd like to see happen here in Napa County. One is the continued conversation on campaign finance reform. I mean, it has to start somewhere, you guys. And a establishment of an ethics commission here in Napa County, if that's something that we can all work on. And then just the continued support that we have for our working folks and families here in Napa County. So really, just thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Richard.
Good morning, Supervisors, Chair. I'm Chuck Delario, and I would like, before I start my own remarks, I'd like to offer my support to the workers at the Queen as well. I think they deserve your whatever you can do for them. Recently, I had occasion to examine in detail the method by which planning commissioners are selected. I prepared a letter. I have copies here for you today. I gave a preliminary draft to Supervisor Manfrey, and she circulated it to County Council. County Council, in my opinion, the way in which supervisors or commissioners are selected is in contravention of state law. County Council disagrees. But I'm not here today to explain why I think County Council is wrong. I'm not here today to challenge the appointments you recently made. I'm here to urge you to change the way in which Planning Commission members are selected as a matter of good government. Because whether I'm correct or whether County Council is correct, the method now in effect lacks transparency and contravenes at a minimum the spirit of the Brown Act. We can all agree that open government is constructive value in our democratic society. To that end, the legislature adopted the Brown Act in 1953 to ensure the public's right to have the public's business conducted in open. Right now, commissioners are chosen by individual supervisors wholly outside the public eye. No one knows what method each of you choose in determining your nominee. Supervisor Ramos conducted interviews assisted by 2 members of the public the year I applied. Supervisor Manfrey did no interviews at all that I'm aware of and simply told me that she had gone somewhere else with her nomination. I have no idea what Supervisor Alessio did. The public hearing served only to place the collective board's imprimatur on choices already made. The county code has no provision of appointment for anyone else besides the individual supervisor's nominee. Posting commission vacancies on the county's website means little if the choices are made with no fixed methodology. The public is concerned about accountability and transparency in public institutions and their responsiveness to public participation. Lack of transparency leads to lack of trust. The legislature responded to this concern with the Brown Act, but the Brown Act does not address individual actions by elected officials taken outside of a public meeting. I'm here to bring a little sunshine on the Planning Commission process. I ask that you consider the selection process in this light and amend the ordinance so that commissioners are selected openly and in the public eye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delario.
On April 14th, 2022, Department of Health and Human Services
Can you state
Secretary...
your name for us, please?
I will.
Okay.
The Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra said this: "We know these vaccines are killing people of color, Black, Latino, Indigenous people at about 2 times the rate of white Americans." Hello, my name is Ronald F. Owens, Jr. I was a public information officer at the California Department of Public Health for more than 14 years. I raised this issue with my management between April of 2022 and October of 2023. Unfortunately, they made it about me not about you, not about the people in this room, not about the people who are watching live or the people who may be watching replay. Look, I love all humanity. I don't care what color you are. But here are the optics. The optics are this. I shared with my 2 white superiors that Berryessa said, we know these vaccines are killing people of color, and they disciplined me. They muzzled me. But I was not going to muzzle myself, so I retired in 2023. And since then, I have traveled to 21 other boards of supervisors, bringing this information to you. It's a follow-up of what I sent to this board in July of last year and December of last year. In my July correspondence, I indicated what Berryessa said, and by the way, it's still on the White House's YouTube channel, indicated about who I am, what I tried to do, and studies from Italy, Germany, and Japan indicating that these COVID-19 vaccines are killing people by the thousands and harming people by the millions. In my December email to this board, I indicated that more than 440 people filed with vaccine adverse event reporting system. If this body and the 57 other boards of supervisors had have listened to my request back in July, perhaps those 440 people may not be suffering today here in California, and the 1 man and the 1 woman who died since then may be alive. I urge you to discontinue promoting, administering, and distributing the COVID-19 vaccines. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Good morning, Ms. Baginski.
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Baginski. I'm a citizen of Napa County. I have these letters that I'd like to be a matter of public record, so I'll give those to you. So each of you received my package of letters yesterday in your box. I had to struggle whether to give them to you here or to put them in your boxes, and I thought, oh, they'll want to read them before the meeting while they go to sleep. There's 11 letters in that package. There's a letter from Sierra Club, the Napa County Beekeepers Association, Napa Climate Now, Napa Vision 2050, the School Garden Doctor, the Institute for Conservation Advocacy, Research and Education, the Napa Solano Audubon Society, the Napa Valley Chapter of the Native Plant Society, and Napa Wildlife Rescue, as well as 3 individuals, Julia Orr, Joseph Van Orsdale, and Jeanette Goich. Those letters took almost 6 months to put together because every single letter had to go before a board of directors and had to have a lot of discussion about what the content of that letter was going to be. So I hope you read it very carefully. Also, when we were doing those letters, we were hoping to put together a habitat conservation plan, which at this time doesn't seem feasible because the timeline for that was to apply for that grant by February 15th, and that seems to be an impossible task. So what we'd like to do is offer the alternative. We met on January 10th. We have a very strong coalition, a very strong group of people who are advocating for conservation, and this group of people would love to see, and all these organizations would love to see, a local conservation plan developed by the county, and they are asking that simultaneously, that while we start looking at a local conservation plan, that we look at sources of funding for that through the California Conservation Fund, and we start looking at ways to put a plan together. I know that I'll come back for the M thing, but that's not what I'm responding to. I'm actually responding to the need for a plan now, because one of the things that became very evident to all of us is that without a conservation plan, we have already seen some things in this county that we really would have been different. And one is the amount of mitigation that we're sending out of the county, the mitigation, because we don't have any land for mitigation set aside, and that would be one thing we could do. Our group is willing to work with the county and solidly walk with the county in developing that conservation plan. So I just want to put that before all of you now, and thank you for all your support.
Thank you, Ms. Baginski. Good morning, Ms. Malin.
Good morning. Chris Malin, 2945 Atlas Peak Road. And I'm here to support Yvonne Babinski's habitat conservation planning movement. And I was around when we did the first baseline data report, and now we're getting ready to update it. But I don't think it's been enough because we have a continued attrition of critical habitats such as wetlands, vernal pools, riparian areas, grasslands, and our forests, because we put the developer first. And I'm saying because we're in a climate emergency, we need to flip that on its head. We need more nature-based solutions in Napa. And we talk about that on so many different venues. We talk about that at the groundwater sustainable planning level. We talk about it in project by project. We talk about it in climate action planning, but we're not doing it. Point to me one project for a nature-based solution. And I've been for years asking for nature-based solutions. It is one of the top ways we save ourselves from climate disaster, is we start investing in our green resources so that they can sequester carbon. We can turn every car into electrification, and it still won't be enough to save us from climate change. We're surpassing 1.5 degrees centigrade. You had the professor from Berkeley come and tell you how dire the situation is. He teaches climate change at Berkeley. He did a presentation to you. He had some shocking graphs and pictures of where the Earth is. Most of the Earth is red from climate change. And so we need to do drastic changes. And I see you as pivotal because we don't have much time left. I sat here a year ago trying to save the crown jewel of wetlands in Napa County from turning into a 49.8 acre reservoir. And unfortunately, Napa County gave it a categorical exemption. And now there's a reservoir at the headwaters of the crown jewel. These are Jake Rugit's description of the vernal marsh in Pope Valley. So we couldn't save it. And you got to ask yourself why.
Thank you, Ms. Malin.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in the room or on the phones this morning?
3 on the phone.
Okay, thank you.
Let me pull up our callers list. 1 second, please. Our first caller today is Wendell Coleman. Wendell, are you on the line? Mr. Coleman, are you there? Mr. Coleman, last call. Okay, try to call back if you can. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have John. John, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes. This is general public comment, items not on the agenda.
I am a parent from Napa County. I am a victim of homicide and kidnapping. Took place in another county. After leaving the Army, I volunteered to the United States Department of Justice to seek action on behalf of the DOJ, San Diego Police Department, and the victims. All of that was kept under wraps. It was kept under seal. But unfortunately, as a result of these frivolous court proceedings that I've been faced with in Napa County, that information is now public, and I'm displaced and placed in danger by the frivolous conduct preferred by the court admin by the county admin and those involved with this dilemma. At this point, those groups are now identified as foreign terrorist groups, FTGs, the people responsible for these murders that I preferred action on behalf of the DOJ. They're identified differently. So at this point, I hope the Napa County will take it a little bit more seriously. They put me in the crosshairs with people who don't hesitate to take human life. And what I did on behalf of the DOJ and the victims is significant and should never have been expected for me to put forward in the county of Napa in proceedings or otherwise. And the handling of this by the county admin, by Health and Human Services, by the bench, and by the district attorney it's abhorrent conduct. It's criminal at this point, and I hope that either criminal action is preferred against those responsible or RICO action through a federal process that I seek to prefer. It's not reasonable to expect somebody to put their life in harm's way to keep their child protected from people like the Ariano Felix organization or other people that are identified as foreign threat groups. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Next caller is Amanda. Amanda, are you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm reaching out to the Board of Supervisors today to speak upon the injustices that I have fallen victim of in the systematic faults of our county officials. I'm terrified. I'm being stalked, harassed. I've received death threats upon my door because my home address was released to the public. Let's see. Sorry. And maliciously prosecuted, CWS, as well as the district attorney's office. There's a serious problem in Napa County that needs to be addressed. I attempted to address it yesterday in court, but was silenced by a judicial officer when he forced me to participate in the hearing, even though I was not properly served. At my court hearing, false claims were made against me by the district attorney's office. They pretty much had I've been terrified by the malicious acts by our county's officials. I'm a hardworking individual, and I really need protection from this brutality that has come upon my family without justice. And most importantly, it is the suffering of our children that hurts the most. Wrongfully taken without evidence. All of this compiled over time. And it is the Board of Supervisors' effort to please protect me from further harm. I've had to endure so much so long. Please, thank you for your attention, and I hope this brings change for our county officials that act in bad faith.
Thank you, Amanda. Right, do we have any other callers on the line this morning? Okay.
Okay, Wendell, we're going to try again. Are you there?
I am.
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, newly elected Board of Supervisor leaders. My name is Wendell Coleman. I'm a resident of Napa, and I have a comment regarding some issues that I am witness to. I am a investigative journalist. I perform service on behalf of the Light News Network, and I have been watching court proceedings taking place in the county of Napa where judges are denying people their amendment rights. This is an ongoing issue that stems all the way back to 2017. I am asking for an investigation to be performed on the civil rights violations in cases against people like Eric Milner, where services are provided by the Public Defender's Office, but they are rendered useless, where evidence has been fabricated by members of law enforcement, malicious prosecution has taken place, the denial of evidence to be submitted into the case is taking place by individuals like Judge Mark Bosenecker, denying victims like Amanda Dawson from being able to share the evidence with the Napa District Attorney's Office. These activities are a disservice to the members of the community. They are a disservice to people who live in this country, in this state, and in this county, as our amendment rights are the foundation of the principles that we are permitted to live on. Yet those rights are constantly being negated in Napa County. I have been made aware of several violations of parental rights and amendment rights that are taking place by CWS. They are performing warrantless removal of children and elderly people from their family members without justifiable cause, utilizing fabricated evidence, and using evidence that has violated HIPAA laws. I will be putting together a cohesive package and submitting it to the newly elected members of the Board of Supervisors. I will be submitting this packet to members of the grand jury in an effort to shed light on the issues that are taking place in Napa County. I urge anyone and everyone who is hearing this message to listen to Johnny X-Ray on TikTok and start to Google corruption in Napa online to see what's going on in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you.
Anyone else online?
That concludes our public comment.
Okay. Supervisor Ramos, do you have a...
Thank you so much, Chair. I was just going to ask if our county counsel assisting us today could just please clarify that the court system is not within the jurisdiction of this board and what in fact was commented on and what we have purview over, since we are only permitted to hear public comment on those matters over which we have jurisdiction.
Yes, technically that's correct. For example, during non-agenda public comments, the comments need to be something within the jurisdiction of Napa County. So for example, if somebody came up and commented about the war in somewhere else, we're not involved with that. We can't affect that. So technically, non-agenda public comment is supposed to be on matters within the jurisdictional purview of Napa County. With regard to Superior Court, that is a separate agency. We don't exercise any control over the court at all. So, there were some allegations about, I think it was one of the judges. We have no control over that. There is a state office of the judicial counsel or something. There are other means for allegations like that to be addressed. But that is not something over which Napa County, this body, has any control over.
Supervisor, I would just emphasize that point. I've never even been in the court building. I've worked here a year and 7 months. I've never stepped foot inside the court building. I don't recall meeting or talking to any of the judges over there, and I don't even recall if I've ever met the court's executive officer.
Thank you, Supervisor Ramos, for asking for that clarification, and gentlemen for providing that. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick 5-minute recess, and then we will come back to item number 8 and continue on with the meeting. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We have just completed item 7, public comment, and we are now on item 8, Board of Supervisors reports and announcements. So I will look to my colleagues to listen for some comments. Supervisor Manfree.
Good morning. Thank you. I have two things. One is I just want to give a big thank you to the county staff and department directors for a really warm welcome this past month. Specifically, I've had great meetings with planning, building and environmental services, with the IT staff, the auditor controller, with HHSA, Public Works. We did a 5-hour tour of the county last Friday. Thank you. The clerk, the CEO, and it's just thanks to all of you and to people I didn't mention also for the expertise and really helpful insights in this first month. And we also had the opportunity to participate in the pit count, which was, again, a really wonderful learning experience. And I also wanted to acknowledge the effort that went into pulling together letters of support for a habitat conservation plan from Yvonne Baginski, which she might have left, but oh, you're there. And I just wanted to say, I think there's a place to bring that into the process with the baseline data report that's coming up, and you know that it's my intention to continue these discussions. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Manfree. Supervisor Alessio.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, and I concur. It's the onboarding, the welcoming of all the department heads that I've met with so far, and there's a list to still meet with that we're working on. Really has been impressive, and I'm just very grateful to be in this position with our other supervisors here and the staff in this community. Just something a little bit more lighthearted is on Sunday. Margaret Wong that owns Empress M and Empress M Winery. She's also an international businesswoman. She hosted the 2nd annual Lunar New Year celebration at CIA, and it was open and free to the public. It was really great. If people don't know Margaret, she's very impressive. She was recently just appointed chair of the Hong Kong Business Trade Association. She has been for a long time on the California Chamber Board, Visit California Board. She's a advisor to the governor and to other people. And also there's a really wonderful history in terms of the Chinese history and heritage in Napa too, that goes back into the 1800s. And I know we're going to be celebrating a really special moment here very soon. But the Chinese laborers were instrumental in the early days of the wine industry in Napa Valley. They were the primary workforce in around the 1850s and through the late 1800s. So they worked in the vineyards, the mines, leather tanneries, in town, the laundries, shops, and they also helped construct major labor of the construction of the railroad here too. So I just want to say thank you to her and let people know she's going to be hosting the 3rd annual next year. So we can also mark that on our calendar, including celebrating Black History Month. And if you didn't know, this is the year of the wood snake. And it's been 60 years since it's been the year of the wood snake, and that represents wisdom, transformation, and personal growth. So maybe we can all take that in. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Supervisor Alessio. Other comments, Supervisor Ramos or Supervisor Gallagher? Okay. Go ahead, Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I just wanted to report. We are very, very lucky to be a destination that people want to come to, and that includes elected colleagues from around the state that choose to have their retreats here. So it was my pleasure to join for dinner on Saturday night the Latino Caucus of Cal Cities. And there were mayors from across the state that came over, and it was great to have them see the contributions of Latinos in Napa County and to be at Celadon, which is a great business success story of a Latino entrepreneur, and it was really great to hear the challenges and the opportunities that cities are working on across the state. I did have the opportunity to attend the CSAC Executive Leadership Forum with our CEO last week, and it was a great opportunity to hear about just everyone is facing. There are challenges. There are extreme challenges, and to hear how different jurisdictions are tackling them, and those partnerships. So just a great reminder that we do have the CSAC Legislative Conference coming up in April, so to please make time to everyone to go to that. And then just a personal a success in the American Canyon High School decathlon team scored third place overall, and they're going to get to go into the state finals. It's the first time that they have placed, and it was great to be able to be one of the judges to help them participate and to see these young adults that are definitely very prepared to go out into the world and to speak for 7 minutes just about any topic on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ramos. I had a couple things. I wanted to, first of all, agree with Supervisor Manfree about the opportunity to participate in the point-in-time count. I was in the sector up in the north part of the county, and I wanted to say a thank you to Jennifer Palmer and her team, because I think it was an amazing day for people to learn more about the situation of unhoused folks in our community. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to flag the folks who participated yesterday in the Day Without Immigrants. I know, hearing from my high schooler what the impact was in school, it was a great moment to reflect on the contribution that our immigrant residents have on all sectors of our community. And I wanted to put a shout out to Councilmember Narvaez, who said something quite wise on his Instagram feed about it. So I encourage people to check that out. What I would like to do at this point is, we've been reflecting on the fires in Los Angeles, and I've heard from many constituents, just concern, are we doing enough in the county? And I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask folks from our fire prevention team to give us a little update.
Good morning, Chair Cottrell and Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity. J.R. Rogers, Assistant Fire Administrator with Napa County Fire Chief Matt Ryan. And it's an interesting dichotomy to be talking about fire in January and on a day that's been pouring with rain. It's definitely not commonplace, and things that have happened in LA and Southern California is not something that we witness typically. And first I want to acknowledge the difficult times our neighbors are going through, and let them know that in our thoughts. It's something that, of course, resonates with us from having gone through wildfires in 2017, 18, and 2020. And we've learned a lot over the last 8 years. We've done a great deal to enhance our wildfire resiliency by reducing fuels, public outreach, and in bolstering our operational deployments. And the county and this board has really recognized that increasing severity and putting a lot of efforts, strong commitment towards protecting lives, property, and the environment. And so Chief Ryan here is going to talk a little bit about some of our current operational deployments, things that we're doing, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the prevention work that we've done and we're doing as well.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Napa County Fire Department is fully staffed, and we have all of our resources that have returned from LA. We did send one Napa County task force to LA for the LA fires for the suppression recovery efforts, and CAL FIRE supported with 11 engines, 5 crews, and 44 overhead. Much of those overhead and engine crews came out of Napa County. Some bigger news is that CAL FIRE, with an emergency MOU from our executive team, announced that we were going to hire back our seasonal firefighters 2 months early. So CAL FIRE Sonoma Lake Napa unit just recently hired back 145 firefighters to support the efforts in Southern California with the recovery and suppression, and with any of emergency incidents that do occur with the rainfall here in the next couple weeks. So with the state mission becoming another priority for CAL FIRE, we've transitioned out of Amador as of January 20th, which is going to identify some cost savings for the county. So currently, all of our Napa County engines are staffed. We are fully staffed with our volunteer membership. And across CAL FIRE in Sonoma Lake Napa unit, we currently have 21 engines, 5 crews, 1 firefighter hand crew, Boggs Mountain Helitack out of Cobb Mountain. With those resources, we are going to continue our fuels management priorities within Napa County, and with that labor force able to execute that. Some projects that we've identified for 2025. So prescribed burning was a big success in 2024, and we're going to continue those efforts in 2025, working with our Napa County Prescribed Burn Association. In coordination with Napa County Fire Administrative Office, NCFF, and CAL FIRE and Napa County Fire Department, we've identified some priority projects across Napa County in the St. Helena Battalion in North Napa. We'll be working on Boothhay Park, some projects in PUC with some prescribed burning, Las Posadas Forest, and the Old Lolly Toll Dozer Line maintenance projects will continue. In the Berryessa Battalion, we've identified some priority projects of the Circle Oaks subdivision, where we will continue to maintain that fuel break around that community. Berryessa Highlands, the strategic dozer line that is in place, we will maintain that dozer line and open that back up in 2025. Identified some other priorities in Berryessa Pines, and Berryessa Estates of opening up those pre-existing dozer lines and furthering the fire protection within those communities. In the Napa Battalion here, in the Silverado Country Club, we will continue our fuel break maintenance work around the country club. Wild Horse Valley prescribed burning will continue. We were successful in that in 2024, and we'll continue that in 2025. In Stag's Leap District, we've identified prescribed burn as well, about 40 acres. And La Jolla Wall Road, the dozer line and fuel thinning across that fuel maintenance project will continue in 2025. And we will continue our support with the Napa Fire Admin and NCFF in 2025.
Thank you, Chief.
A lot of things that we have going on, and of course in the past 8 years we've invested very heavily. We developed a CWBP that we'll be working on updating. We've implemented a local defense space ordinance that we'll also be reviewing. We've instituted biannual defense space inspections, of which we conducted over 4,500 just in 2024, and we'll be spinning that up again here in April. And of course we've invested very heavily just in Napa County dollars in fuels reduction to the tune of $24 million just since 2021. And the numbers, of course, we reviewed in our year-end report, 1,945 acres just in general fuel reduction, so that's fuel breaks and the like, 267 miles of red side vegetation, 553 acres grazed, and 140 miles of dozer lines, all just in the last 4 years, and an impressive 289 cubic yards of vegetation chipped just by our Napa County Fire Department chipping program. And of course, 15 months ago, you stood up fire administration working with Dave Shue, myself, and recently Eric Mycroft to really work to develop that wildfire resilience Napa County. Mr. Shue just recently in Southern California looking at some of the devastation in LA to see if there's any lessons learned that we could bring back here. And continuing to do our work with Napa Communities Firewise Foundation. NCFF is just concluding its 23-24 contract, which was over $6 million in 12 different projects. And of course, working on our current year contract, over $4 million, working to not only do, of course, that fuel reduction work, but also to work with our 22, almost 23 fire safe councils to get those set up, to support them, and to get them to be Firewise USA certified, which many of them are, and many in the hopper being reviewed actually right now for their certification as well. And of course, as Chief Ryan mentioned, a lot of great maintenance priorities to try and build up our initial investments, and trying to work and build partnerships with CAL FIRE and others to try and continue that maintenance work, realizing that dollars to do initial work is maybe more easier to come by than that maintenance effort, which is something we need to now focus on. And of course, we can't end without talking about our $60 million worth of FEMA grants. 3 of those that are either awarded or in pre-award in various different stages. We have currently 4 RFPs for contractors across those 3 different grants, 2 different contractors already hired on, all of it in the planning phases to begin to try and implement those over the coming years to really bring more fuels reduction projects with other dollars to enhance our county dollars that we're putting forward, and also try and get to the individual parcel level and work with our communities as well. So this really highlights a lot of what we've done, and of course we cannot end without highlighting and thanking all of the private property owners that have put in tens of thousands, and in some cases millions of dollars towards their homes and businesses, and also the resources of CAL FIRE, PG&E, the vintners, the grape growers, the farm bureaus, and of course the land trusts and many others, and our nearly decade-old partnership with NCFF, an initiative to really bring and make Napa County more fire resilient. Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. It's great to hear that the project is moving forward at Bothay Park. I know I've been on some calls trying to get state parks to be able to actually issue the permit. So that's another question about kind of permit streamlining. But also something you just mentioned, Mr. Rogers, about the need to focus on maintenance effort. And so that's something I'm wanting to think some about. You know, we had the effort with Measure L that didn't pass. I think we need to look at something similar like that again. And I also know that, you know, our open space district has been operating on a shoestring, and it's probably going to need to figure out some durable funding measure. So one of the things I'm starting to think about, is there a way that we could combine efforts to look at a durable funding mechanism? So I'm going to try to put together some kind of meeting with some open space parks folks and fire prevention folks, looking at the two of you, and hopefully our CEO could participate too. But I'm not looking for a referral at this point. I think that's premature, but I think this kind of conversation needs to go forward. We've done such great work, but if we don't have a maintenance plan, we lose that progress. Ms. Rossup, did you have something?
Sure, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's important for the public to understand the extraordinary amount of work and resources that are being put into wildfire mitigation in our community. It's a year-over-year effort, and really appreciate the leadership of CAL FIRE, our Fire Chief Matt Ryan, our fire administration, groups like Napa County Firewise Foundation, and all of the fire safe councils. This is a conversation that our community needs to have county-wide. The ongoing maintenance of all of this money that is being put in it's going to require some sustainable effort going forward, and it's not a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. This is ongoing forever, yeah, we're going to have a conversation because this is not something that's sustainable coming out of the county's general fund going forward every year. And I would agree with you in general. We should that's something that we need to think about and probably have a discussion on as a county going forward sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallagher. Thanks to both of you, Supervisor Gallagher.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the chair for asking you to do a quick presentation. Yeah, I think it's wonderful, especially to have our admin and our chief here together presenting. Good, really quick, comprehensive update. Really appreciate that very much. And I just wanted to say that I also have been thinking for a while about the issue of maintenance and how we may look at some funding in combination with bolstering our open space district. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. So there is much more discussion to have, but looking forward to that. And thank you both again.
So I think we want to hear from both Supervisor Manfree and Supervisor Alessio. Did you have something else? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, without repeating, just for the sake of expedience, I echo these comments, and I just want to say that strategizing for climate resilience is, I think that's for me that's the umbrella that makes sense here, because we're dealing with fire, we're dealing with rain events like we have today that are getting more intense and expected to get even more intense than they already are. We're having some sea level rise issues in South County, potentially coming up more and more as time goes on. We're having increasing needs for disaster response, and there's been a long-term push for more open space funding and capacity in this county that hasn't ever quite made it over the hurdle of getting enough support to go forward. So I think we need to build on a lot of really wonderful existing work that we've already done. There is so much data in place to support these decisions. It's just a matter of getting the conversations going, I think, and getting stable funding. And as a rural resident, I just want to say every month is Fire Preparedness Month. It's a great time to get out there and burn your piles if anyone's listening on the phones. So stay on it, folks, because it's going to be summer. It's going to be hot and dry in no time.
Thank you. Supervisor Alessio.
Yeah, exactly. So well said, Supervisor Manfree. And thank you, Chair, for bringing this forward and for this impromptu, concise update. I absolutely agree. And I know our residents do too. We're here to represent their needs and address their fears. And we know that with climate change, it's not a matter of if, but when the next time will come. I applaud the fire safe councils and all the fire organizations that have come together to do so much good work that we had not done in my lifetime. And so we're really far ahead, but without that maintenance, we're going to lose ground, yes, pun intended, before we know it, especially with these, all this rain and then the sun's coming. All it does is just, it feeds the fuel, which is beautiful, but then when it dries, and it dries quickly and fast, it's terrifying. So I appreciate this being brought forward. I do think this is a discussion that we need to address. I do understand this is not sustainable in what we've been able to do and pass with general fund, because this is just going to be ongoing. This is not going to have an end date, a sunset time. So I definitely support that. And also want to think about, and I'm just going to put this out there a little bit, because evacuation is so critical when that time comes, that we're sure that we have the access, especially for the rural areas, to have really good evacuation. And so that requires, roads that are in good shape. So maybe that can be tied in, because I also know that we're going to be running short per our recent public works tour, that we're going to be, the funding that we've been putting into roads is also not sustainable in terms of what we need to have done. Thank goodness for Measure U. That's going to give us a tool to be able to advance those funds forward. But again, it's one tool. We need fuel tool. A few tools. So thank you again, and I guess we'll wait for this to come back on the agenda.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Just a quick shameless plug. Supervisor Manfree kind of alluded to it, but for our chipping program that this board has been very gracious to support, the Napa County Fire Department will be launching in the beginning of April. Our application opens March 17, and we really encourage all the community members to be working on building those piles and getting ready for us, as that program will be open from April till about the middle of November. So look for more on that, and just keep doing the good work at home. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And what on the shameless plug theme, so I will be joining. There's a statewide wildfire task force that has members of the Natural Resource Agency and also different county representatives. Our first meeting is in March, and I hope to share a lot about what this county has done, because I think we are on the right path. We know we need to do more, but we've done a lot of great work that other counties, I hope, can learn from. So. Thank you. With that, we will move on to our next item, which is item 9, discussion of items pulled from consent calendars. And today we have 2 items for discussion. We have 6E and 6M. So let's go ahead and start with 6E.
All right. I was the one who requested for this to be pulled, and there aren't any substantive changes that I am interested in discussing or making, but there are a number of typos which change the meaning of sentences in this document, and so I'm just giving this some space for the staff to address.
Good morning, Mr. Dooley.
Good morning, Chair Cottrell, and thank you, Supervisor Manfree. This item is the adoption of an ordinance after the introduction at the last meeting. The government code allows for typographical and clerical errors to be corrected before the adoption. If there were any substantive matters, they would need to be reintroduced, but these are all clerical. They were caught at a point where it makes sense to put them on the record, which I'm going to do now, so if you'll bear with me. On section 8.80020, there are 2 definitions that had corrections. The one for damaged property, there should be the word "or" after the lightning complex fire and the 2020 glass fire. The definition for unique topographic or geologic features has the word "he" in it. It should be "the." It was missing the T. Section 8.80.060F, subsection F, says in the draft, it says if there is a sufficient area. It should be if there is insufficient area. That is a section that is currently in the code that was transcribed incorrectly. In section 8.80.080C, there's a phrase, the property owner shall be required to execute the record on, and that should be execute and record in the county recorder's office. And then the last one is section 8.80.090B, which says that if the department determines that the road or structure would not be visible for any of the designated public roads, that should be from any of the designated public roads. Those corrections will be provided to the clerk in the final version of the ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? All right, I'm going to take a moment and open public comment. Is there any public comment in the room or on the phones? Okay, if not, then I will ask my colleagues for a motion to approve the amended ordinance.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Supervisor Manfree, second by Supervisor Ramos. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your close reading, Supervisor Manfree. And now we will move to item 6M. Good morning, Mr. Bordona.
Good morning.
So I know I had a question about this item. This is about our baseline data report, which I am fully supportive of. One of the questions I had, and perhaps I can make sure we're getting all the questions on the table before we turn it over to you, is I just wanted to hear a little bit from you about the scope of the BDR. In my understanding, what we're aiming for here is a gathering of data, scientific evidence, and kind of what is happening on the ground status quo that we then use as the baseline for building out our general plan. And the only question I had is there are also pieces in here about public workshops, which makes sense because I think we want the public to understand what this data is, how it's being gathered. There were a couple items in here about optional logo creation and selecting a palette, which I thought, I don't think I want to support those options. So, and I don't see any recommendation from you that we want to do that. But so if you could, from my view, just speak generally about that scope and what you see the role of the public in this process as well, because I know this is different than the general plan process.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, this baseline data report is just as you described. It is going to be the foundational component of our general plan update. It is not a policy document. It is an inventory of the current data that the county has as it relates to physical conditions, environmental conditions, economics, tourism, the state of the environment, on a whole host of other things as detailed in the scope of work. There will also be an update to the regulatory framework that influences decision making. Ultimately, the document, of course, is intended to inform policy-related decisions, which is the general plan. It's very important that we have fact-based, scientific-based information from which to inform policy discussions, such as some of the ones that you've heard today, as it relates to biological resources, habitat conservation planning, and to reiterate what Supervisor Manfree says, absolutely, the BDR is going to be a tremendous opportunity to inventory all things biological resources, again, from which we can then decide and determine if a habitat conservation plan might be a right vehicle for achieving the goals of a habitat conservation plan, or maybe a better way to do it would be through a local conservation plan. That's another option. There will be a whole host of other options that we will be putting on the table, and there is going to be plenty of opportunity to have those robust discussions in a policy format as the general plan kicks off. You mentioned the logo and branding. That's fairly standard when we are developing documents of this nature, particularly ones that are going to be the foundational piece of the general plan. So the logo and the branding will be established and will be carried out consistent with the general plan branding and logoing. We've done it on the climate action plan. We did it on the groundwater, the GSP. It's fairly standard. I don't think it's a huge cost, but it's something that I would recommend that we do include. We do have our PIO staff as well as our own internal graphics staff that could help if costs are an issue with that. That we could look to save on if the board prefers. But again, it's fairly standard in establishing a presence either on the website or through workshops, the branding piece.
That's helpful. And I think I was reading specific details, and I think, Mr. Alsop, we've talked about how important it is for the county across departments to be using the same imagery. And so that's, I think I'm just flagging, I don't want us to be making something new for the general plan, right? It should be consistent with what we've already had out there. So
I agree. And then you mentioned workshops and public outreach. I think it's really important to involve the public or provide opportunities for the public to participate in planning exercises. It helps shape the discussion. It helps ultimately inform the visioning of the general plan. Along those lines, I think it's very important to be clear on what the baseline data report is, and I guess more importantly, what it isn't. I do not envision public workshops necessarily as a venue to debate information. It's going to be fact-driven, scientifically driven data that we will be collecting. The time to debate things will be through the general plan process. So if, for example, somebody feels that we should be including data from a certain study or whatever that we may have overlooked, yes, absolutely. We will be looking to inventory all things data as it relates to the county and its operations. Also, it's important to make sure that that data is accurate. So it needs to be provided from folks with expertise. And that is critical not only to have an accurate baseline data report, but it's also critical, at least from my perspective, to make sure that the report that we end up is credible. We need to make sure that we are not providing opportunities to call into question the accuracy of the data. And so that's going to be a key piece when we do start collecting data and whatever sources it may come from.
Thank you. I'm going to look for lights here, but also while my colleagues come up with questions too, I'm going to open up the public comment. So if there's anyone in the room who'd like to comment on this item.
Thank you. Yvonne Baginski again. I'm going to put on my conservation director of the Napa Solano Audubon Society hat for this comment. One of the things that I have been doing is I've been gathering anecdotal information about biological resources in our community, because I have been looking at the biological reports that are put forth by the planning, by the developers and the EIRs, and I've noticed a lot of discrepancy in the reports. And I'll give you one small example of what I'm talking about. I have been thrilled about a burrowing owl that has showed up under a railroad tie. I showed it to Mr. Bordona. I showed it to different members of the CDFW. I've just been thrilled. And I go, where can we report this? Where can we verify it? Where can we scientifically put it in a database where it will persevere? And I sent it to CDFW. Carrie Stroll took the picture. She went out 4 times, and those of you who know Carrie Stroll know she's a teacher. She's doing the monarch butterfly things. She's a credible source. Carrie gives me the picture. I take it to CDFW. They send it back to me, and they say, thank you very much, Yvonne. You input it in the baseline, in the biodiversity database. Oh, I can do it myself. I didn't know that. So I go on the computer to do it. I can't do it. I don't know why they told me I could do it. I can't do it. You have to have a special password. You have to have register. You have to be in a position of some authority. Yvonne Baginski, Napa resident, cannot be inputting data into that report. So why would CDFW send that back to me and tell me to do it? Because CDFW doesn't have a lot of staff, and they don't have time to run out there and look under every railroad tie for a burrowing owl. So what I'm saying is, and I'm asking Mr. Bordona, please use the sources in our community, the Audubon Society, the Plant Society, use those sources, because those are the people who are out there, they're walking, they're seeing it. The Sheehy Creek Trail, I looked at the biological assessment. They said two unidentified raptors were flying above the field. I went to ebird.org. 139 different birds have been identified there since the beginning of the year. But according to the report done 2 years ago, there was only 2 unidentified. So the discrepancy in the information needs to be looked at. And that's what I'm asking. I'm saying, can we all sit down and go over the data and say, this is true, this is not true? The Audubon Society puts together a Napa Birds Atlas. That has not been updated since 2008. It is horribly out of date as well. So we all agree, all of this information needs to be updated, and we'd be happy to work with you in any capacity, and it's something we genuinely want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baginski.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to talk on the baseline data report. And as much as possible, I would hope that Brian would make way for the public to comment on this, as it's going to be a guiding document for the general plan update and other things. So I don't know what the other things are. But it didn't help us on Madorum, the 49.8 acre reservoir that was approved with a categorical exemption by the county of Napa on the crown jewel vernal marsh, that Jake Rugit went to the county and asked them not to allow the reservoir to go in. And it stopped at one point in 2013, and then the guy went out with a tractor and he gradually graded it and smoothed it all out and made it look like it wasn't a wetland anymore, and then went in and got a permit, and Jake tried to stop it, and he couldn't stop it. The crown jewel wetland of Napa County, he couldn't stop another hundreds and hundreds of reservoirs. So how do we fix that? We have to have a system that Yvonne explained, and I'm trying to with making a point on this one project, that we have to bring it down to the project level. It needs to translate. And when Jake comes in and he works with the staff on showing all the vernal pools, all the wetlands in Napa County, their sensitivity maps that he's worked on for years and years and years, to bring that expertise that he knows the plants. He's the regional botanist for Napa, Solano County. He wrote a book, 400 pages long, documented thousands of native plants in Napa County. When he says there's a rare plant there, it's the truth. So we have to be able to use our local resources. We need to fill in the gaps on the data. And the public has a lot to offer on that, like Jake, like Yvonne, like me, when I identified California freshwater shrimp in Washika Creek when we were doing biological monitoring. And we were told, oh, there's no more shrimp there. Well, yeah, there were. We accidentally caught a few. So, there's a lot here by the public that can help with that. And I don't want us to go down the road, to spend all these millions of dollars on data baseline report, and then the public has knowledge here because they're on the ground. They hike, they care, they live here, they see. And we need to take that into account to help protect our natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malin. I don't see other questions or comments from the supervisors here.
Madam Chair?
Oh,
There's someone
yes.
on the line.
Okay, great. And we have someone on the line.
Kelly, are you there?
Oh, yes. Yes. Hi. Good morning, Supervisors. Kelly Anderson, calling in from Angwin, standing in the rain. The two specific things that I think will be very helpful is to look at that contract and make sure that the consultant has budgeted time, really hours. How many hours are they going to spend in the county looking at these resources? I mean, post-fire, we have seen so many incredible rock outcroppings, which are habitats for bats, for raptors, really important. They are called out in our current baseline data report, oddly, as not a biological community, but important. It's listed in there, and there's so many places where we simply bulldoze and dynamite these important habitats. And I really think we need to have time in the budget for those people conducting the baseline data report to come to the county. So that's number one. Number two, I think they need to sit in a place that is predetermined so folks can come and bring the data that they have gathered and present it to the baseline data report. I understand it's not a time to debate policy. I understand it is pure science. But there's a term, citizen scientist, and we bring a lot of information that can be helpful to that report that we're going to spend a lot of money on. So I urge Mr. Bardona to speak to that today. Does the budget, does that contract accommodate real time here in the county, boots on the ground, and does it accommodate an opportunity in person to have public comment to beyond a meeting in Yountville? Those are my requests. Thank you so much for your time today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Anyone else on the line?
Yes, we have David Graves. David, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. This is David Graves speaking. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I wanted to applaud the choice of ESA as the contractor. I think they're very thorough and experienced and have a great deal of intellectual horsepower to bring to this issue. I think one of the issues that sort of bubbles in the background is my expert versus your expert in terms of compiling data, and I want to emphasize the value of establishing a robust joint fact-finding process at the outset, such that we're not wasting time arguing about the veracity of, streamside riparian vegetation or whatever. And I look forward to learning more about the timetable as this develops. And I know that many in the community are very interested in lending their experience to the ESA DDR. So I was involved in the selection of the first DDR contractor back in the mid-2000s, 2005. I think we have a qualitative step forward with both the framework and the contractor for the VDR that you have outlined today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graves, and great to hear your voice. So with that, we're done with public comment. So I will bring it back to the board, and I'll also want to ask Mr. Bordona if he wanted to respond to any of the comments.
Sure, happy to. So a few things were said. As it relates to information provided by local experts, just as the 2005 baseline data report did, this one will as well. Particularly Jake Rugit, he participated in the first one. Joe Calizzo, who's no longer with us, did. It is very important to include data from credible, qualified local experts such as those. So to answer Ms. Anderson's question, yes. In terms of effort, hours, money towards the topic of biology or biological resources, we have dedicated 431 hours to that chapter. If you look at the cost sheet, you will see that along with hydrology and a few others, is the highest amount of hours attributed to a given topic. So I'm pretty confident that that is a sufficient amount of hours. As far as individuals providing data, we will welcome that data. Again, we need to review that data, make sure it's accurate and credible. And so we will come up with a system for receiving that, whether it be directly by way of email, a portal on a website. I don't know, but we'll figure that out. That in large part is the intent of having public workshops. It's an opportunity for folks to come get a better understanding of the baseline data report, and to the extent that they have data that we might be able to use, we will of course consider it. I think that might have been, that's all my notes. If I missed anything, I'm
that
happy
was
to.
really responsive. Thank you. And I think I like this point that will make it easier than CDFW's website to add things into.
So on that point, we will be using CDFW's information. We will also be using our own information. Ms. Baginski mentioned how we have several biological reports that have been prepared and received over the last 10, 20 years. We will be including those results of those biological reports in the biological layer. So any identified special status species, vegetation types, and whatnot will be included in a layer. That, of course, will help inform the presence of species in certain areas. It will also allow us to make inferences about the presence of those species within land cover types that are similar or the same. We will not be, just to be clear for Ms. Anderson, we will not be doing botanical surveys on every square inch of the county. That is not possible and very infeasible. So I just want to make sure expectations are set along those lines. But we will be gathering every piece of biological data that we can find. And we will be going through it and making sure it's accurate and credible and including it.
Great. Thank you so much. Supervisor Alessio, and then Supervisor Manfree and Ramos.
Just a really quick question. The wildlife cameras that are out and all over the county, especially, in the mountains that are tracking, whether it be cougars or black bears or other species, is that by CDFW or those private cameras? Do we have access to that data?
It's a good question, and it's something that came out of discussion I had with Ms. Baginski and her group a few weeks ago. I do believe Fish and Wildlife has cameras. I know Land Trust has cameras. I know the Open Space District has cameras, although their cameras are not intended for wildlife tracking purposes. But as we delve into the biological section, we'll be talking with Mike Palladini at the Land Trust. If he has data or findings, whether they're by camera or otherwise, he's covered a lot of ground, as has Lena and others in their shop. We're going to ask for that data. There are also opportunities to convert, I believe, some of the parks cameras to also function as wildlife cameras. It's something I can work with Mr. Cahill on because it's important to know what's moving around out there.
Perfect. That's great. I know that there's cameras specifically just tracking cougars that would not only help with that count, but also with other wildlife. It's an organization, I think they're out of Sonoma, but it's present here. Mm-hmm. So just if we can look into that, because I do think the camera data would be really helpful. And I'm really excited. I think that we are so privileged and blessed to have such biodiversity in our county. And as mentioned, we want to preserve that. And to preserve that, we need to know what it is, and where we are. So thank you very much for that work.
Thank you, Supervisor Alessio. Supervisor Manfree.
So much to say about this. So I want to circle back to the California Natural Diversity Database, and just for, I guess, everyone's benefit, just say that it's a presence-only database, which means that an absence of a record does not mean an absence of a animal or a plant being present. The only way that information gets into that database, as Mrs. Baginski explained, is that a qualified professional enters it. And that's typically done through the development process, or if something really special is seen somewhere and somebody has enough extra time to go through the database process of putting it in there. And at the outset of creating this particular database, the decision was made not to include fishes. And so it does not include fish species anywhere in the state of California. And the place where you can go for fish data is a database called Pisces, which I think is just not that well known, but it exists. It's housed at the Center for Watershed Sciences at UC Davis. And it's authoritative, and it has information, I think, at the HUC 8 level, the Hydrologic Unit Code 8 level for fishes throughout the state. Again, not absolutely exhaustive, but it's the best thing that is available. If we can find some way to create a pipeline for citizen observations to be assessed either by the consultant or by a partner organization like Audubon or the Plant Society or something, I think that would be helpful, because as somebody who likes to hike and is out in the environment a lot, there's just things you see when you have the time to do recreation or that are hard to capture otherwise. And Brian, you mentioned bats, like that's a good example. Somebody might just be having a nice evening out on their porch and see something, or have the cat bring one to the door that can be identified. And that's the kind of observation that's very, very difficult to get with surveys. So I think that's it for me for now, but thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Manfree. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you so much. And in the interest of brevity, I just want to say a couple of things in regards to where this item was placed. It was placed on consent. I think you have heard sufficient comments today, not just from the public, but also from supervisors, that the interest is definitely here to ensure that even though it may just be a contract, that we go ahead and anything related to the general plan be brought to us as an admin item, so that we can make sure through the clerk's office that we provide sufficient time for the discussion of that item. To Supervisor Manfree's point, I think one of the things I would hope that the director would expand on is we are going to receive a baseline data report update in late summer. And at that point, we're going to have a workshop where it is my hope that these concerns regarding how we're going to formulate outreach and workshops will be addressed. Is that correct, Mr. Bordona?
Yes. Late this summer will be a good opportunity to bring an update to the baseline data report update. At that time, there are a couple key items that I need to request authorization from the board on, one of which is direction to me to proceed with an RFP to hire a consultant to prepare the general plan update and the related EIR. I also will be asking for direction on the formation, creation, makeup of a general plan advisory committee. At that time, I will provide not only options on the makeup and the selection, but also a recommendation. And there'll be ample opportunity to have that discussion at that time.
Thank you so much. So with that, I think this is just the beginning, or maybe December was the beginning of getting this all started, but we have much more to come, and I'm happy to go ahead and make a motion for approval of item 6M.
I was hoping you would do that. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Did you have anything else to add? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't, but I did want to ask if we could move 11C up before 11A. I know we have people in the audience, and I believe A and B require just our staff to report. So
Great idea. I will look to our clerk and our CEO to that works for them. Okay, great. So we will now move to item 11C, and then we will move back to 11A and 11B. So here we are at 11C, and good morning, Mr. Lederer.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I concur with moving that up. Thank you. Happy to be here. Steve Lederer, Public Works. This item has been percolating actually, well, for several years, if you go back to the beginning of the board's discussions about project labor agreements many years ago. So I won't go through too much of that history other than to say that the board has considered project labor agreements several times before, most significantly for the reentry facility where the board actually entered into negotiations for a project labor agreement. Ultimately, those negotiations were unsuccessful. So the board ended up not doing a project labor agreement then, and then considered it again before the new jail project. And the board decided at that time that the time was not right for various reasons and did not do so. But the board asked us to look at this again. Actually, specifically on July 9th, 2024, Supervisor Gallagher made a referral. And on October 15th, 2024, the board had a significant discussion on the project labor agreements. I will note that two of our supervisors here are new. They were not here in October, but I'm aware both of them have, I think, rehabilitated themselves, I think is the technical term in terms of reviewing what happened then. So I'm not going to go back through all of the details there. I think in summary, project labor agreements, many counties and cities use them. Many counties and cities do not, and for various reasons. And I'm really just going to summarize kind of some of the pluses and minuses that have come up without going into a lot of the detail. I guess I'll do disclosure here. In terms of family background with unions, my daughter is Director of Communications for the National Labor Relations Board. I'm assuming it still exists. I checked with her an hour ago. I think it's still there. And my daughter-in-law is a senior union official with the American Federation of Teachers, also back in D.C. So lots of union at our Thanksgiving table. Project labor agreements certainly support unions. Unions are, I think, well known in our history as serving a lot of valuable functions, particularly now. Maybe the largest one that I see is their training programs and bringing people into the trades and providing that skilled labor for projects. And that's probably, in my mind, one of the most valuable services they provide. So that's on the plus side. On the other side, if you will, there are many studies that show that project labor agreements do cost money. Some of the programs and whatnot, those costs are, of course, baked into the contractor's costs, so they're part of the bid. But the biggest impact of cost is generally the fact that they discourage non-union bidders from voting. From bidding. And the general rule of thumb is more bidders, better prices, fewer bidders, worse prices. So there, as with many valid policy options, good things come with some cost. The difficulty with these is that it's always difficult, even after a project is done, to determine that cost. Because if someone doesn't bid, you don't know that, right? So you can't analyze what didn't happen. So there are, as I said, it's a policy decision. There are pluses and costs associated with it. What we're ultimately asking for is direction as to whether to enter into a negotiation or not. The CEO and myself would work together in that negotiation if the board directs us to do so. We're specifically targeting Building 4 at South Campus. It's a roughly $40 to $50 million project. It's a very significant project, twice the size of reentry, roughly half the size of the jail. But it's a very significant project, and it would provide a good pilot for us to learn on and to see the pluses and the minuses. If the board again wants to do that, recognizing that there could be cost impacts on the project. So I'd recommend at this stage, I believe. I also do want to mention that in our staff report, Let me just make sure I get this right. In our staff report, we mentioned the Northern California Trades. There is a separate union group, the Northern California Carpenters Union, which apparently is a separate organization. They don't work together, but they've asked to be, if we go forward, they've asked to be included in this. So I'll just mention that too, that if the board gives us direction, I would assume they would give us direction to work with both of those, although that's an option for the board as well. So my recommendation is the board accept public comment, and then CEO and I are here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Letter. I think I'll go ahead and do that. Open it up for public comment. We'll go in the room first and then see if there's anyone on the line, and then come back to the board for questions. Good morning, Mr. Bernardini.
Check, check. There it is. Thank you, Board Chair Cottrell and our new members. Congratulations and great to see you up here. My name is Danny Bernardini. I'm the business manager for the Napa Solano Building and Construction Trade Councils. We represent 15 union construction affiliates. And again, I just want to thank everyone, including staff, CEO, board, everyone who spent time on this agenda, and the multiple hearings we've had and the discussions we've had, I think have moved this item along to the point where we are ready to negotiate. Negotiations in the past, I just want to clarify, our first negotiations were a county-wide PLA, the reentry facility being one of the major projects of that, but it was for a county-wide PLA, not for the specific project. And so having a single project, I think, helps negotiations go a little bit quicker. We're talking about the parameters of one project. It's set. We're not talking about thresholds or future projects that could or could not happen. And so, and then if that is approved, that becomes a very good template for any future projects. That's how we did in American Canyon. The first project we did was, I'm thinking of the road. It was a Green Island Road project. It was a test pilot, if you will, and it came in $75,000 under budget or under projections. And so American Canyon moved forward with a citywide PLA. Including in that PLA, we just had the new open space, which I think I talked about last time. We had non-union contractors win awards on that project. They were sent labor from the hall, and that is how we do business. It's illegal to exclude them from bidding these projects. And from the fact that they can call the hall and get labor sent to them, and they're trained from 3 to 5 years on one specific trade, I think is appealing to some contractors. It might not be appealing to others. As far as limiting the bids, I would say the opposite. It alerts our union contractors that there's a PLA on this project. There will be pre-jobs, there will be job classification, there will be jurisdiction, and they know that their members will get to work. And so I know that it attracts certain contractors who might not have bid Napa projects in the past, feeling that the lowest responsible bid sometimes can obscure the bidding process. And so I do want to say $50 million is what our current project we're doing right now, which is Mare Island Tech. It's a charter school in Vallejo. Our general contractor on that project is BHM, located right here in Napa. We did another pre-job meeting yesterday. Included, I believe, 2 contractors from Petaluma, 1 from Santa Rosa, and Collins Electric, which is out of Napa as well. And so I know there's been some questions about how many members we have here. I have some of those numbers. I'm running out of time here. And so again, I just urge you to start the negotiation process, and a lot of the questions you have will be answered in that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardini. Good morning again, Mr. Laval.
Good morning again, supervisors and, of course, staff and members of the public. Glenn Laval, Executive Director of Napa Solano Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, speaking in strong support and solidarity for this process to go forward and commence negotiations for the project labor agreement for this particular project. As pretty well illuminated by some of the previous comments from the Building Trades Council, among the primary advantages that we see here, of course, is basic mechanisms in place to ensure strong worker protections and stronger quality of life, both in wages and benefits. Alongside that, of course, as cities or any local communities pursue the development of pathways and recruitment of workers from a local workforce, the unions become a natural partner facilitating those efforts in helping to generate and sustain that skilled and trained workforce of the region. Alongside this, of course, just a note on background research. From the available methodologically independent and updated studies that are available will indicate cost savings as well as no impact on the number of bidders. This is based on a variety of comparable infrastructure projects around the state of California with some additional research beyond the state and its context. And so we do see a wide range of strong protections that are enshrined here for workers and resources in place to facilitate the goals of sustainable and equitable development, giving a skilled and trained workforce, support for local workforce development, and of course, many other measures in place, both in the wages and the benefits, given, of course, that this county, like all communities across the Bay Area and really across the state and the nation, are struggling and really need to be looking at the question of how public resources are facilitating the best quality jobs, and really that virtuous cycle of better wages, better established career pathways, and how those workers with greater earning power and regional connection spend back into the economy and create that virtuous cycle of simultaneously enhanced wages, benefits, worker income, and local tax revenue critical to our essential services. And so we greatly thank you for your engagement and consideration. And of course, our recommendation is to proceed on these negotiations. And we look forward to the next step toward facilitating positive and sustainable growth in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laval. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? Okay, great. I will bring it back to the board for further questions for staff or discussion. Supervisor Gallagher.
Thank you. And thank you to the staff for bringing this back. I am very much in support of us pursuing a PLA and starting negotiations. I would actually like to recommend, and as Mr. Lederer did, that we include the NorCal Carpenters Union. We want to make sure everybody's at the table. I know that NorCal has actually partnered with CLC before, so that isn't new. Very interested in what a PLA can do in terms of supporting working families and quality jobs. You know, we have a lot of low-income jobs in our community. Because of our ag and hospitality industries, and we want to make sure that whatever we can do to support working families and quality jobs that we're doing. I also really like that with a PLA, you get that pre-job meeting where everyone can really clarify, you know, what are all the materials and equipment and everything that need to be used to start the project. I think that puts a lot of scrutiny on the contractor. So if it is a non-union contractor that's bidding and receives the, you know, the contract, they know they have to go into that pre-job meeting, so they are going to be ready to be scrutinized at that level, and I think that that's very, very important. So I just very much support this, and I think that this is a unique opportunity because we are looking at one specific project, and it does give us an opportunity to engage in this process and see, you know, how it goes, and gives us a great way of determining how we want to move forward in the future. And that's all I want to say for now. Thank you.
Supervisor Manfree and then Supervisor Alessio.
Okay, thanks. I just want to say that we started the day with a proclamation for Black History Month, and the theme of that was labor. And I think this is kind of an auspicious day to be talking about this topic. So I just want to bring us back to where we started today because it's very relevant. I do believe in investing in communities and families. And when you're talking about, you know, I know, you know, the funds are always limited, but at the same time, families are struggling after years of inflation, and we're in the middle of a housing crisis, and those dollars are really meaningful to building the whole community. So, you know, while it looks like a cost when it's on a budget spreadsheet, it's also an investment in communities. And I just want to echo Supervisor Gallagher's comments that this is a bit of a test case for Napa County. We're moving forward cautiously with project labor agreements and connections with unions. And I am also in support of including the Carpenters Union. And I'm really looking forward to seeing teamwork among the unions that reflects well on everyone involved.
Thank you, Supervisor Manfree. Supervisor Ramos, did you have any comments at this point? No. Okay. Okay. I was going to make a couple comments, and you've got some too. Go ahead, Supervisor.
Sorry, I thought I had my button pushed down, but, oh, okay. Sometimes okay. Well, I want to thank staff for bringing this forward and for the report and for our labor siblings for being here and also joining us today and, kind of spouting family history. Great-great-grandfather Edward Van der Loor on the back wall, his son was actually the chairman and president of the general strike representing labor. And helped to get that negotiated. And I've shared those articles with our labor. So again, we philosophically, I think labor brings up the equity that we are really wanting to bring into our communities and our working families. The couple concerns I have, and when I say this, I do support, I'll say this in advance, and then I'm going to say a couple other things. I do support going to the table and see if we can work through negotiations. That said, we also have to be aware of our workforce and the people who live in this community and where the labor is going to come from. Yes, a non-labor contractor can bid on the process, but where is he going to get the labor? And I had asked Danny before, you can get me some numbers, because we really want to support working families in Napa County, primarily. I mean, we need to support our projects and for the greater good, but we're also trying to support our local county-wide working families. We don't want to add unintentionally, if we don't have to, adding more people to the daily commute, Monday through Friday, of already 36,000 people, which only creates congestion, greenhouse gas, and again, it doesn't address our local labor. That also said, it goes back to local hire. And what I hope is that is there some way to thread that needle where we can support local hire and support the unions? And it was discussed in past with the previous supervisors in negotiations, if there was a 1-to-1 kind of ratio. So one person from the union hall, one person from local hire. If there's some kind of balance that we can find, I don't know, but maybe that's something we can discuss. The other is, the cost and the time. I think the PLAs, they do a great job in bringing in under budget and time. But I also hear the contrary, and maybe I'll just ask, I'll put our Public Works Director on the spot, that it also shows that PLAs can cost between 5% and to 15% more. Is that what I think your report said? Though I'm hearing different from our labor friends.
Yeah, there are a lot of disagreements on this. I will say I have seen studies that say they don't cost anything. But the vast majority of the studies that I've seen, and admittedly these studies are done, they're done by engineers. They're done by a lot of different people. Again, the question about whether you're keeping certain or discouraging certain people from bidding is a factor. In terms of determining cost, when someone says the project was done and it was $75,000 under budget, I can say, we do dozens, hundreds of projects, year after year. Many of them are done with union contractors. The vast majority of them come in under budget. Many of them are done with non-union contractors. The vast majority of them come in, at or under budget. When an engineer does the engineer's estimate, the expected cost, they will generally And we get this from a wide range of cost estimators, architects. They'll generally bake in somewhere between 5 and 15% cost into the engineer's estimate. So that's built in at the bid.
Such as like a contingency?
So
Or just already just in the...
Well, the estimators have an obligation to present the best, their best understanding of how much they think the project will cost. And we actually kind of have this discussion. You said, well, if a project has a PLA, why don't you just assume that it doesn't have a PLA, and that's the number you put on it, and then you can make some judgment. But by putting, frankly, the wrong number down there, you may in fact be discouraging bidders again to not bid on the project. If a project is really going to cost $50 million and you pretend it's going to cost 45, there are contractors who will say, this is screwed up, I'm going to go work somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So the estimates are the engineers, the cost estimators' best estimate of what they think the project is going to cost. So oftentimes the cost of the PLA is already built into the cost estimate. So when the cost estimate is $50 million and the project comes in for $50 million, well, frankly, that's what we expect, right? And that doesn't say the PLA was good or the PLA was bad. Again, somebody mentioned BHM as a local Napa contractor. They built our Health and Human Services campus. Didn't have a PLA, but union contractor. They won the job. They did a nice job. Came in at budget. All good. I mean, I think there's a lot of people try and make the PLA into, it will do this or it will do that or it won't do at the end of the day, all of that, we've done good projects with union contractors. We've done good projects without union contractors. We've done bad projects with both as well. I mean, it does sometimes happen. So the PLA is not going to magically make this cheaper. The PLA is not going to magically make it a better project necessarily. It absolutely supports the structure of unions, which, I've already kind of been on record. There's a lot of positives associated with that, particularly associated with training and workforce and whatnot. But I mean, that's really what it is. There is a cost associated with that, and it's just a matter, I believe it was Supervisor Manfrey who talked about it as an investment. It's a policy goal, and it's an investment, and it's just whether that's the highest and best use of your investment dollars, given all the different things that, we have pulling at us.
Yeah. Thank you for that that explanation, because I was crunching the numbers, and at 48 million, 5% is 2.4 million or 2.4 million, 10% is 4.8 million, and 15% is 7.2 million. That's a lot of investment. And I want to make sure that investment is made into our community. These are tax dollars that we're trusted with, and I want us to be good stewards of those funds. I also want to support labor, and I'm kind of putting the pressure on staff here and labor, because I want you to go to the table and I want you to bring something that can really work, because I do support us moving forward with the PLA if we can, but we have to do it in an equitable way for our community. So I do support bringing this back, and it's a pilot program, and I would say it's a big fat pilot program, because $48 million is a lot of money. I mean, I would have been supportive for a project that wasn't quite as big to be pilot, but here's an opportunity. Our labor organizations have been waiting a long time for this moment, and I support them in that.
Thank you, Supervisor Alessio. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you so much, Chair. One of the things that I certainly have heard, having been the one with the benefit of going through this exercise a number of times now, and one of the things that I'm hearing really makes me want to challenge our staff and the unions representing employees to think about this differently. A project labor agreement, simply collective bargaining. We do this with our employees. I want us to really switch the focus over to be a community workforce agreement, which encompasses the collective bargaining, but also is an opportunity to address the issues that I have heard my colleagues say, which is the local hiring preferences, the investments, and to be able to quantify that. Absolutely. Any cost that is in excess is an investment, and it needs to be quantified, but it needs to be quantified with objectives that have been negotiated. And so I want to refer to our staff, the Department of Public Works for LA County negotiated first a project-specific community workforce agreement. And once they did the trial run, they were able to then negotiate a county-wide CWA thereafter that is applicable to this day in Los Angeles, in which all the trades were signatories, not just one. So I think when we look at this, we need to, in good faith, negotiate with all the represented trades. But I think that really giving you the direction, because that's what you're looking for at this point, direction, negotiate. So in fact, our values that have been spoken here today, I have heard local hiring, I have heard protection of wages, I have heard investments in our community, and I have heard accountability for a public works project. This stands to be the largest undertaking of this county to date. And not by any desire on our part to spend this much money. It is the cost of doing business, and certainly the cost of continuing to be able to deliver the high quality services that we want to deliver and that our residents are worthy of. Likewise, our residents are worthy of good paying jobs and opportunity. And so if we refer this over to staff with direction for negotiation with a community workforce agreement and community benefits focus on this collective bargaining, I think that we meet the goals that have been stated to all of us here, and gives us the opportunity to move forward and see if in fact this way of doing business is reflective of the values that this board has expressed today. And with that, I think that's a sufficient referral.
Thank you, Supervisor Ramos. Supervisor Gallagher.
Thank you, Supervisor Ramos, for expanding on the conversation and really summarizing for us. I just wanted to say that I really haven't heard anything here today that convinces me that PLAs cost more. So I think we'll see, and I think that it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are investing in the community and that we are doing everything we can to support quality jobs. And so I look forward to, to the negotiations and to both labor and our county public works coming up with something that is truly going to work for the county, work for labor, and best support working families. And so I agree that we should go ahead and refer this on.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallagher. I had a couple comments. First, want to appreciate the conversation. I think this is a moment of learning for all of us, and Director Lederer, the background you've provided is really helpful. I think just the point that deserves repeating is that it's the opportunity we have here is as a market participant to enact some policy. We do a lot of things from the regulatory side, but this is a moment where we're looking to have a service provided, and we can move forward on policies like local workforce development, workforce training, quality jobs. So and I also like, to Supervisor Alessio's point, this is a big pilot. We really, I think all of what I'm hearing from everyone is an interest in really tracking this process and outcomes. So one question I would have that I don't need to hear the answer today, but what does success or failure of this, project look like? I mean, not just the project, but the agreement process. So that's, I think, something to think about. And then drilling down into a couple specifics, I received a copy of actually from a supervisor colleague in Sonoma. They are considering a community workforce agreement there. And so I would encourage staff to take a look at that, see what are examples that are helpful, what are things that we don't want to do. I agree with the point that's been mentioned that we want to make sure that we're offering the opportunity for multiple unions to participate in the negotiations. So I'd like to see that. I like seeing in this community workforce agreement a reference to helmets to hard hats. We are always looking for ways to support veterans in our community. So I'd love to see that be included in any document we have going forward. And then I just wanted to flag for my colleagues, it was interesting here, the definition of the local area. Then this is from the Sonoma perspective. They say the local area shall be defined as Lake, Napa, Marin, Mendocino, and Sonoma counties. So, I mean, we know that we have folks already who are working here, living on, just over the county border somewhere else. So anyway, I think that's worth thinking about. And then a question I had, and this may be from what we heard a little bit in last year's discussion about this, was that, as has been made clear, a non-union contractor has the ability to bid here. And what we did hear and see examples of last time was that non-union contractor could bring, I think we were looking at perhaps the American example, could bring some number of their own employees along with them, as well as going to the union halls. So I think that's an important build-in to have as well. So, and that I think can help us get to the local employment piece of it that we also want to move forward on. So with my colleagues, I'm supportive of moving forward with this as a test case, and I look forward to tracking it, and would also love to hear from staff. We've said a lot in your direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll go to Mr. Alsop as well. And then I know there's more questions from the soups.
I'm going to let Supervisor Alessio.
I just noticed that our Public Works Director has been trying to get a word
Yes,
in,
so-
and so I didn't realize. I thought you were going to make a motion and then
No,
you
no,
were going
no.
to get an opportunity to speak. So that's all I was doing. Just
I
kind
love
of
we're
flag
helping
his-
everyone get a voice. Director Lederer.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to some of your points, which I think are great. Certainly the local labor, the local area discussions came up last time, and as I mentioned, we were not able to come to agreement on that, so I'll be very interested to see whether we can close the gap on those discussions. So that'll be very interesting. I just want to talk in terms of schedule. Right now, we're planning on going out to bid on Building 4, probably near the end of this calendar year, and the project labor agreement is part of that bid, so obviously it has to be done beforehand. I do not want to be negotiating this the day before we go to bid. My goal would be to really be done this summer. I mean, we have plenty of time, but I don't want to use all that time, so I'd like to see us, be able to wrap this up in about 6 months, well before the bid documents are being written, so that we don't have to do that. So that's my plan.
Thank you. Mr. Alsop.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for those comments. And for, the audience at home that's not seeing this, everything that Steve just said, the Trades Council guys are shaking their head, saying yes in agreement to all of those things that you just said, which is a good start, right, if we were going in this direction. I wanted to read back what I believe is the direction so that we're all clear from your board, and so that you can vote on it and you can decide if that's not it or you want to add anything to it. But today you're directing myself with Mr. Lederer to enter into negotiations with the Napa Solano Building Trades Council, and
the carpenters.
And I just want to make sure I understand, in addition to the NorCal Carpenters Union, is that correct? We will enter into those negotiations to create a community workforce agreement that is reflective of this board's stated, not just today, but over in the past, stated and practiced values to include the things that the chairwoman Cottrell said about veterans. I see the gentleman back there shaking their heads. That's a good sign. And to also
that's nodding, Mr. Olson.
yeah, and to also include the scope of area that was outlined by the chair, which I also saw some head shaking, nodding back there. So with all of that, if that is reflective of what you believe the direction that you're giving today, we would appreciate a vote of the board on that, or a motion on that.
Okay, I'm going to turn to, thank you for that summary and that clarification. So I'm going to look to my colleagues and find out if there's any clarification or modification to what's been stated. It's pretty general, but I think it sounds like there's direction. Supervisor, let's see, I've got Alessio and then Ramos.
Supervisor Ramos, if you want to go first, I can ask my question after if I still need to.
Yes. The other thing I was just going to say is that I know a few of our unions have been working with the district attorney's office specifically on some wage theft practices. So I think it would be great direction to give to staff as you go and negotiate, making sure that we have a touch base with the district attorney's office on the civil division to ensure that we're incorporating any of the work that they have been doing thus far. Thank you.
Thanks. So we'll take that amendment in, and then Supervisor Alessio and then Supervisor Gallagher.
Just for clarification, Director Letter, just so I have a clear understanding, and so does our public or community, what is the difference between the community workforce agreement and a PLA, a project labor agreement? What is that? What's the nuance that's different, or is it just same thing, different name?
I don't know, and I guess I'll learn.
I don't feel so bad. That's really pretty bad. Oh, we have. Is it okay, Chair, if Danny steps up and he?
Yes,
or I don't know. We have to reopen public comment.
And I will ask Mr. Bernard
because he has a answer.
So certain areas call it different things. What we did in the city of Vallejo was we added a workforce development section to the PLA that talked about incorporating the high school course, the adult school course, the trades introduction program that we have, and the test prep course at the adult school as well. And so we put a promise in there. At that point, we had already built that pipeline, and so we promised Vallejo we would try to utilize that given the PLAs we have at the city, the school district. And so in this case, for a single project, it'd be hard to talk about long-term goals. But if we were to talk about the future, we would talk about working with the county office and local school districts and the adult schools to build that pipeline. And so we could start training folks for the jobs that hopefully residents can be doing in their own county and cities.
And is that the difference between the two different, the PLA and the community workforce agreement?
Just to be frank, I think some cities ask for it to not be called a project labor agreement or have it be named a certain thing because of drama that they have in their council. And
I just exposed it.
No, we don't do that. We're more comfortable putting the workforce development language in it because we believe in a project labor agreement, and from what I've heard, you all do too.
Yes.
And so we're happy to put that language in there, but we would be calling it a project labor agreement with workforce development language inside.
Okay, thank you for that.
Unless you change that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Alessio, for asking a question that I had too, so that's great to hear. Supervisor Ramos and then Supervisor Gallagher. Okay, Supervisor Gallagher.
I just wanted to say that I'm very much in favor of the way that Danny worded that, PLA with the community workforce development piece. And I want to go ahead and make a motion that we direct staff to start those negotiations, taking into account all of that we have discussed. And it sounds like you're clear on the direction.
I'll second.
If I see the nods, then okay.
And I'll second that with a nod.
All right, there's a motion by Supervisor Gallagher, a second by Supervisor Alessio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, staff. Thanks, union team. So with that, we will move on to 11B. And I believe that we will hear from Ms. Briseño for that. Good morning. It's still barely the morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. Christine Briseño, Director of Human Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to present this administrative item. On December 13, 2022, this board appointed Cheryl Bratton to serve as County Counsel in accordance with California Government Code Section 27640 for 4 years beginning February 27, 2023. Under the terms of the agreement, the county paid a flat annual salary of Step 4 at $136.54 per hour of the adopted and posted salary schedule for the county council classification, with an annual step increases beginning the first pay period thereafter until the highest step is reached unless the board directs otherwise. In October 2024, my office conducted a management compensation review to determine if our management compensation continues to be competitive in our region's market, ensuring we uphold this board's compensation practice to ensure our benchmark classifications are within 4% of the market median. Because county council position is a contracted position, it is necessary to bring any recommended compensation changes to this board in a public hearing and not on consent. The recommendation is to increase the compensation to a Step 5 hourly rate of $158.78. And this change in compensation is in alignment with both internal and within the market median to ensure we remain competitive for this very important and essential position of county council. Therefore, it is my recommendation that this board approve and authorize an amendment number 1 to agreement number 230264B with Cheryl Bratton, Napa County Council, to increase the compensation effective February 15th, 2025. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Briseño. I'm going to turn to public comment. Is there anyone in the room or on the phones for this item? Okay. Then I will ask staff if there are any questions for Ms. Briseño at this point or comments. Board, sorry, not staff. Supervisor Gallagher.
I just wanted to clarify in the board letter, I guess it was, there were a lot of references to 2025 when I thought they should say 2024. So please tell me if I'm wrong. It said Bratton received an increase to Step 5 effective February 17th, 2025. I think that should say 2024. And why? And I'm not sure why it said Step 5. Did it say Step 5? And a cost of living adjustment in June 2024 to Step 5.
It should say 2024.
Okay. Yeah. So the dates and the steps were a little weird. A lot of Step 5 when I think we're just now going to Step 5. Is that correct?
Yes. Also, the performance review was in December 2024.
Yeah. So there were just some corrections. I thought that because it made it confusing.
I understand.
So are we now going to Step 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe we
Thank
can
you.
entertain a motion as amended.
I can make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Gallagher, second by Supervisor Ramos. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Briseño. And now we will move to item 11A, where we can sit back, relax, and enjoy 11 minutes of Napa County history. Good morning, Ms. Dawson.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the board, colleagues, and community members. This month, we are celebrating Napa County's 175th anniversary, marking its rich history since 1850. The official anniversary falls on February 18th, which is the date that Napa County officially became one of California's first 27
Coming
counties.
up on this special edition of Through the Vine.
And that's a little preview. We'll be showing you that in a moment. Over the past several months, we've updated our website and planned ways to share Napa County's rich history with the community. There's a banner now on the homepage of our website, which links to a special 175th commemorative page. We have also updated the Board of Supervisors history, featuring past and present members with links to biographies. We've launched a social media campaign featuring engaging posts and historical historical facts throughout the month. And finally, we have a special edition of Through the Vine, Napa County's official newscast, which only scratches the surface of our history. So I warn you, when you watch it, it will not cover everything, but it's very exciting, and Linda did a tremendous job. I want to say this anniversary has been a fascinating historical treasure hunt made possible by many dedicated individuals, including Barry Elberling from the Napa Valley Register, who we've been working with to go through old files and try to find things. Special thanks especially to former Supervisor Diane Dillon, whose dedication to history has been instrumental in preserving Napa County's governmental legacy. And she quietly admitted that this work around the 175th anniversary has reinvigorated her research into our history. We also appreciate John Tudor for sharing his historical knowledge, Bob Fleshman and Trina Edwards at the courthouse for their help with archival records. We went digging down in the dungeon, and the Napa County Historical Society for their research and photos. They also reviewed the script for our newscast to make sure that it was historically accurate and sensitive, and so many more. Also, a very special thank you to Napa County PIO Linda Weinrich for producing the 175th anniversary edition of Through the Vine and creating the content and social media assets for this celebration. And now I invite you to sit back. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Sit back and watch.
Coming up on this special edition of Through the Vine, we're celebrating Napa County's 175th anniversary. From a look back at our early roots to how history is being made today. Join us as we mark this major milestone. Welcome to Through the Vine, the official Napa County newscast. I'm Linda Weinrich, Communications and Public Information Officer. It's a new year and a big year for us as Napa County celebrates 175 years. It was on February 18th, 1850, when Napa officially became a county, the same year that California became a state. Representing their constituents, the Board of Supervisors, originally called the Court of Sessions from 1850 to 1852, voted on critical issues that began to lay the foundation of the county. Inside the board chambers, the back wall features portraits of supervisors past and present. The oldest, photographs of Jesse Warren Witten and Florentine Irwin Kellogg, two of the three elected officials who made up Napa County's first Board of Supervisors. These bound books holding the recorded minutes of board meetings going back to 1852. The first meeting dated December 6th of that year, showing all three supervisors were present.
We as a county have taken the time to consider and respect our history, and it shows a continuity of purpose and mission in supporting the community.
Back in the 1850s, life was very different. The population estimated at just over 1,000 people, according to the 1852 California census. Transportation, mainly horse-drawn carriage and schooner. Agriculture, primarily wheat. Milk, only 10 cents a quart. An annual subscription to the first Napa newspaper, the Napa County Reporter, only $5 a year. The bale grist mill, one of the earliest structures built in 1846, once a center of social activity.
Envision there are hardly any buildings at all. There's a very natural landscape of oak trees, woodland savannas. The Napa River is here, which is the impetus for the city of Napa because it's a navigable river.
This is the earliest official map of Napa County from 1876, showing land ownership, roads, and railroads. Napa was the first city to be incorporated by founder Nathan Coombs in 1847, followed by St. Helena, Yountville, named after frontiersman George Yount, and Calistoga. Fast forward 140 years, American Canyon was incorporated in 1992. To understand the Napa County of today, let's go back to our roots more than 10,000 years ago. Napa County's first inhabitants, the Wapo tribe, still active in the community today. Famed for their basket making, the Wapo and later Patwin were both hunter-gatherers who lived off the land. At the turn of the 18th century, people around the world began mass immigration to the valley. In 1836, the Rancho era began, a time marked by Mexico's expansion into the Napa Valley. The historic Rancho boundaries shaded in colors on this 1876 map. As the population boomed, so did the diversity of the county. The Napa River, temperate climate, and the rich agricultural land drawing people from all across the globe.
This place has always been a place that people desired to come to, whether they were second homeowners, whether they were farmers, or investing in other kinds of agriculture. When the Europeans came in 1850s and 60s, they looked at the soil, they looked at the climate, they looked at the availability of water and said, oh my gosh, we can make wines that compete with France.
Napa County today is renowned for its world-class wine, but the land has produced much more than just a bounty of wine grapes. In the early 1850s, Napa County was one of the largest producers of wheat, the second in the state. There were also fruit and nut trees and livestock like cattle and horses. In 1839, ranchero George Yount was the first to plant grapes in the valley, and in 1858, John Patchett established the first commercial winery. But then came dark times. First, the Great Depression, followed by the first phylloxera outbreak, which killed thousands of vine acres until a rootstock cure. Just as things were looking up came Prohibition. World War II helped as demand grew for domestic products, followed by the birth of several wineries in the 1960s. In June of 1976, a decisive event that would catapult Napa Valley to stardom. A blind tasting in Paris pitted California's best Cabernets and Chardonnays against France's top wines. The winning red and white wines, both from the Napa Valley.
We here in the community knew we made great wines, but the Judgment of Paris was a moment where Napa County wine was recognized internationally as being of the highest levels. So that was a really historic and proud moment for Napa County.
Over the course of the county's 175 years, so much has happened. One of the earliest physical structures, Napa County's first courthouse. Its bones built in the East Coast and barged up the Napa River. It was erected on Coombs and 2nd Streets. The historic courthouse today rebuilt in 1876 to replace the original. To preserve agriculture for the future, the passage of the Napa Valley Agricultural Preserve in 1968 would change the course of the county's history, protecting local farmland for generations to come.
City-centered growth policies, which include the Ag Preserve to prevent sprawl, are a cornerstone. And we were one of the first places in the United States to do those kinds of things.
Following several floods, the Napa River Napa Creek Flood Protection Project reimagined flood control. A living river design reconnected the river to its historic floodplain. Since the devastating 2017 and 2020 fires, the county has been proactively investing in fire prevention work to the tune of around $60 million from federal, state, and local funding. To this day, we continue to build on our history, including our recently elected Board of Supervisors. In 1972, Virginia Ginny Sims became the first woman elected to the board. Fast forward to 2025, Napa County has made history once again with its first ever all-female Board of Supervisors, the second in the state.
It's the first time we've ever had that in Napa County. And to me, I'm really proud of the residents of Napa County for having the foresight and the openness to elect female representatives.
All that we have accomplished wouldn't be possible without the heart of our community, the people who make Napa County the best place to live, work, and play. Thank you for helping us write our history. To learn more about the county's 175th anniversary, visit countyofnapa.org and follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Nextdoor. Thank you for watching this special edition of Through the Vine. I'm Linda Weinrich. We'll see you next time.
Great job, Ms. Weinrich. What a great thing. And you know, the other thing that's valuable about history is it makes us see problems we don't have, like schooner parking. You know, like where would we fit them? I don't know. So with that, unless there's any questions, comments, accolades. Thanks again. You did a great job, your team.
Madam Chair, real quick,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that was really excellent. That was the first time I saw that. I thought Linda does a great job on that newscast. That was really good. And I just wanted to say, this is totally random, but I live downtown and I have an oak tree in my yard that I can't remember the gentleman's name, the arborist that writes for the Register, Bill.
Pramick.
He came to my house. I called him, and he said that my oak tree is between 180 and 200 years old.
Wow.
To put it in perspective on what I just saw, so I think that's pretty incredible. It's just downtown here.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. No, that's great. Supervisor Alessio.
I saw this last night. I was being Snoopy, and I was just kind of preparing for today, and just really excited. You know, we know not only are we so fortunate, we talked about earlier about the biodiversity and, you know, the historical decision and political courage it took to put in the ag preserve, and what we need to do here to continue to preserve that moving forward, especially with the pressure of housing and development. You know, looking at this also in terms of the economic development side, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but it's poignant to mention this now, that Dr. Shelley Smith, who is a many decades recognized archaeologist and who grew up here and has worked all over the world, former director of the Historical Society, Napa County Historical Society, and she's really brought these heritage organizations together, which is something we wanted, and they're really working together now. And Diane Dillon and Shannon Coletto, they're working on making sure that is secure and that continues, because not only do we want to respect our history and heritage, the good history and the not so good history. We have to recognize that we have been participants in this county of history that we need not to repeat. Hence, today, as we know what's happening in terms of the pressures and the political pressures and what's happening that's on the federal level that is trying to encroach on who we are and what we do and how we do it. But going back to the economic support, and I think really the vibrancy, and maybe it will help with the political, you know, if we ever need to be politically astute about this in terms of the economic benefit, is that she learned, and this is nationwide data, is that when, as a destination area, when visitors come to an area and they really can feel and embrace and touch and understand the history and heritage of that area, there's 36% more dollars spent per day by visitor and a more likely chance that they'll stay an extra day. So I say we continue to embrace this, we illuminate this, not only because it's the right thing to do, not only because we want to know our history so we don't repeat the bad history, and also want to say history changes over time in terms of who is sharing that history. So always being open and learning what the truth of some of that history is, because sometimes it's just also not always as transparent. And I think it really has become more and more. But there really is so many benefits. And again, thank you. I'm going to share that video. That's really excellent.
Thank you, Supervisor Alessio. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting on February 25th, 2025. Just in time.